Hello and thank you for joining us on the news on NTA International. I'm Lami Ali and the sign language interpreter is John Bamidele. Let's begin with the headlines. Vice President Kashim Shettima advocates more funding for resilience as world marks Disaster Risk Reduction Day. Global health actors converge on Berlin for 2025 World Health Summit. Plus, Israel confirms release of last 20 hostages held by Hamas as President Donald Trump declares war in Gaza as over. Vice President Kashim Shettima is optimistic that with more funding in building resilience among communities prone to flooding and other forms of disasters, the risks incurred in the event of disasters will have been tremendously reduced. Senator Shettima stated this as the 2025 International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction with the theme Fund Resilience, Not Disaster. Ilyasu Aliyakubu completes the report.
Funding resilience in the management of disasters is one major component of the disaster risk reduction strategy, which requires community participation for immediate response. Since 1999, the United Nations General Assembly introduced the disaster risk reduction mechanisms as a paradigm shift from reactive to proactive approach in the management of disasters across the globe. In 2010, Nigeria adopted the strategy for proactive engagement in the management and mitigation of disasters. Vice President Kashim Shettima says the readiness for disaster is the true measure of every nation's maturity. Beyond demonstrating the utmost respect for the sanctity of human life, it reveals the commitment to building a system that rests on order, foresight, and stability. He said the strength of a people is not proven in the chaos that follows calamity, but in the wisdom of preparation that prevents it.
Every naira we spend today on preparedness saves many more tomorrow on response and recovery. Every investment in resilience is in truth an investment in the lives and futures of our people. We do not have to look far to understand this message. In recent years, we have seen floods wash away farmlands, erosion swallow roads, and fires raise markets that took years to build. These tragedies happen not in distant lands, but in our own communities, to people we know, to families just like ours.
Governor Dikko Rada of Katsina State highlighted efforts put in place to reduce the hazards of disasters through constitution of the local emergency management committees at various levels of government to promote disaster risk reduction strategy.
I urge all stakeholders to deepen collaboration and ensure that no stakeholder is left behind in our collective effort to build a safer and a more resilient Nigeria.
This stakeholders meeting is very important for us to have a comprehensive and holistic approach in addressing and preparing this country for a better resiliency.
Director General National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA Zubaida Umar, explained that the dialogue is critical to collectively rethink how the resilience can be fully funded to move from reactive, ad hoc funding of disasters to a multi-stakeholders financing architecture that support prevention, preparedness, and sustainable recovery.
These events are testing the limits of traditional emergency response systems and demanding a more proactive, preventive, and well-financed disaster risk management framework.
Other speakers re-echoed the funding of resilience for effective management of disasters across the country. In Abuja, Ilyasu Aliyakubu, NTA News.
Now, the ECOWAS Commission has joined the global community in commemorating the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction under the global theme, Fund Resilience, Not Disasters. This theme calls for a transformative shift in how nations and institutions invest in disaster risk reduction, prioritizing proactive resilience building over reactive disaster response. Through the Directorate of Humanitarian and Social Affairs and its Disaster Operations Center, DOC, ECHOS has made significant strides in advancing DRR across member states by strengthening partnerships with development actors and technical institutions and enhance the visibility and readiness of the ECHOS DOC as a regional coordination hub. And the United Nations General Assembly designated October 13th as International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. This year's theme, Fund Resilience, Not Disasters, pushes for a proactive approach to building resilience. Correspondent Ilyasu Aliyakubu reviews the 25-year UN strategy exploring the shift from disaster response to resilience building investments.
Disaster management across the globe has been a Herculean task, subjecting victims and managers of the menace to difficult situations due to the dynamics of the disasters. Worried by these incessant occurrences, the United Nations General Assembly introduced the Disaster Risk Reduction Strategy as a paradigm shift from reactive to proactive approach in December 1999. In 2010, Nigeria adopted the strategy for proactive engagement in the management and mitigation of disasters. Since then, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has been strategizing using the DRR method of approach to reduce the number of casualties, destruction of property, and other livelihoods.
I find it necessary to stress that disaster management across the world is predicated on community participation and due consideration to diversity of persons, leaving no one behind.
Available records indicate that there has been a significant reduction in the number of casualties due to the level of awareness on the disaster risk reduction in Nigeria. In 2015, the United Nations also inaugurated the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, a 15-year global agreement by the UN member states to reduce existing disaster risks, prevent new ones, and increase overall resilience to disasters from natural, biological, and technological hazards. The framework set out 4 priorities for action: understanding risks, strengthening risk governance, investing in resilience, enhancing preparedness for response and recovery. Experts believe that the introduction of the disaster risk reduction strategy is paying off, as evident in the 2025. Consequently, disaster management and mitigation efforts appear minimal, often overshadowed by the usual outcry following devastation. In Abuja, Ilyasu Aliyakubu, NTA News.
And so joining us live in the studio is the Chief Disaster Risk Reduction Officer of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Teingwa Igwe, to continue this conversation. Thank you for joining us in our studios.
Thank you very much.
All right, Fund Resilience, Not Disasters is the theme for this year's World Disaster Risk Reduction Day. We want you as an expert to put a perspective to that.
Yeah, thank you very much. In 1989, because of the high rate of disasters that were affecting the globe, the UN General Assembly designated October 13 as the day for International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. The aim was to create awareness and to governments and private and everybody to understand disaster risk and to encourage people to invest in disaster risks and to build capacities of disaster management practitioners and stakeholders in disaster risk management. So over the years, they've had various teams aimed at creating awareness, and this year the team was picked very importantly as building resilience. You know, the aim is because we want to move from reactive disaster management to proactive. So it's cheaper and easier when you build communities that are resilient than to respond to disaster. So we shouldn't be investing more finances into disaster response, but rather we should put more resources into building resilience, early warning system, reducing risks or reducing the hazards that affect people. It's cheaper. That is the reason for this year's theme.
All right, for Nigeria, how do we situate our disaster management against the theme for the celebration, being that every year Nigerians experience flooding in some parts of the country? So how do we situate our response to this disaster going by the theme of this year?
Sincerely speaking, Nigeria in the last few years have really improved on disaster risk reduction because we have actively participated in both international and African and ECOWAS and both national disaster platforms, and we've created so much awareness. In fact, one of the targets, number one for the Sendai framework, which is understanding disaster risk reduction, is what the agency have done so very much, and they've created six disaster risk management institutes in about 6 universities, one in each of the geopolitical zones. The aim is to create awareness, and the capacity DG that we have now has funded a lot of early warning systems. Like for this year, for flood, right from after the seasonal climate prediction, teams were sent to the 36 states, to create awareness and also build community early warning systems for most of the high-risk communities. And this was done in collaboration with the state emergency management agencies and the local emergency management committees. And she has also consistently said that disaster is local. So we need to empower our local emergency management committee, which are the third tier of disaster management system.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Igwe. Yeah. Thank you for, the additional information that you just gave us. We thank you so much for being a part of the news today.
Thank you very much.
Now, it's time to rebuild the global health system to meet today's realities. Global health actors at the 2025 World Health Summit in Berlin, WHO said, who said this are calling for a major shakeup in the way the world finances and governs healthcare. Basi Itaikpang reports that this came at a session on transforming the global health architecture, rethinking governance and financing models.
The session set the tone for urgent reforms in global health leadership. Speakers stressed that depending on donor aid is no longer sustainable. They called for fresh homegrown solutions, from fair health taxes to diaspora investment bonds, to help countries fund their own health systems.
Albert Einstein, he once said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And indeed, we have no chance but to see it this way. In the light of the major crisis we are facing, we need to make the global architecture fit for the future, and we have to do it now.
The health systems were crumbling. We must solve that. We must integrate, build one health system that addresses vertical diseases, but that's one system that delivers cost effectively.
Panelists also appealed to wealthier nations and financial institutions to ease debt burdens on low-income countries so they can build stronger and more resilient health systems.
This is why we came with the Africa Health Financing in a New Era. Some of you are calling that Green Book. This Green Book was the starting point. It's the most comprehensive document that Africa developed to address the issue of health financing.
The 2025 World Health Summit brings together key global health actors, all united by one clear message: health governance must be inclusive, accountable, and locally driven. From Berlin, Basi Itaikpang, NTA News.
You're watching the news at 7 from our studios in Abuja. Time to take a break. Do stay. Now, the federal government is advocating that hand washing should be a strategic step towards Nigeria's fight against disease outbreaks, as well as in curbing global threats. Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Utsef, stated this at a press briefing as part of activities marking the 2025 Global Hand Washing Day, which is observed on October 15th. Usman Zubairu reports.
Available statistics indicate that about 1.8 million children under the age of 5 die every year from diarrhea and pneumonia, owing to poor knowledge about the importance and practice of effective hand washing. Regular hand washing with soap is critical to disease prevention, improve health, and eliminate barriers to economic opportunities. This press briefing highlights government efforts in fighting and curbing the threat of diseases and activities lined up to mark the 2025 Global Observance of the Hand Washing Day. Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation said the ministry has provided the needed facilities and enabling environment to make hand washing at work and public places seamless for Nigerians. He says hand hygiene is one of the most effective and simplest way to stop the spread of diseases.
Is to reach every Nigerian with a message of hand washing with soap during these engagements. I therefore wish to acknowledge and appreciate our partners who are supporting these initiatives at the national level.
Activities to commemorate the day include roadwork, sensitization campaigns, emphasizing the importance of hand hygiene as a crucial public health measure. This year's theme is Be a Hand Washing Hero. Usman NTA.
Preparations for the formal inauguration of the League of African Ambassadors has climaxed in Lusaka, capital of Zambia. Correspondent Austin Angebe reports.
Some Africans are poised to change the negative narratives that have overshadowed the potential inherent on the continent. This is a strategic move by diplomats on the continent who are coming together to form a league that will not only promote unity among states, speak with common voice, but advise political leaders on strategic policies that will fast-track development and deal with the issue of poverty and insecurity bedeviling the continent. Already diplomats and high commissioners as well as other prominent leaders from across Africa are converging on Lusaka, capital of Zambia, for the formal inauguration of the League of African Ambassadors.
We are trying to lend a voice to tell Africans that this is the way we are going to solve our problem. We're not going to, if you don't know my house better than I know my house, so when you come to my house, you have to be shown where the bedroom is, where the kitchen is and everything. So you can't stay outside and tell us this is how to solve your problem, because like they say, who feels it knows it. So we will address some of those issues in the best way we can, based on our experiences. Not based on conjectures, but based on our experiences, because we are on ground and we have all the experience on all the things that they push out as negative narratives. So we are hopeful that people will buy into what we have to offer. So for us, it's a very significant event and we are very excited that it's taking place finally.
Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, is on ground to bring you details of this epoch-making event. From Lusaka, capital of Zambia, Austin Anyebe, NTA News.
And we go to Cameroon, where vote counting is underway following Sunday's presidential election, where the world's oldest sitting leader, Paul Biya, is seeking to extend his more than 4-decade rule. Comfort Fashion reports.
Polling officially closed at 6 o'clock Sunday evening, with election officials confirming that the process was largely peaceful across most regions of the country. Counting began immediately at polling stations nationwide as required by Cameroon's electoral law. Security was tightened in the English-speaking northwest and southwest regions, where separatist groups had threatened to disrupt the vote. An early report from some overseas polling stations, including in Saudi Arabia, indicate that former government spokesman Issa Chiroma Bakari led in local tallies. Cameroon's electoral body, Elocam, says it is working to compile results from over 8 million registered voters. And according to the Constitution, the Constitutional Council must announce the final results within 15 days of the poll. Analysts say President Biya remains the front runner, with the opposition divided and some candidates, including Maurice Kamto, disqualified before the vote. However, observers caution that tensions may rise as provisional results begin to emerge in the coming days. For now, authorities are urging calm and patience as the nation awaits the official declaration of results. And if re-elected, President Paul Biya would extend his tenure beyond 4 decades, maintaining his position as one of the world's longest-serving leaders. Cameroonians await the final outcome of a vote that could shape the nation's political direction for years to come. Comfort, Fashion, NTA News.
Madagascar's president has reportedly left the country amid mounting political unrest and a loss of support within the military. His departure follows weeks of youth-led demonstrations demanding change and accountability. Tensions have been rising in the Indian Ocean island nation, where economic hardship and growing discontent among young citizens sparked nationwide protests. What began as calls for reform soon evolved into a broader demand for leadership renewal. President Rejolina's reported exit, said to be on a French military plane, marks a significant turning point for Madagascar, a country with a history of fragile transitions and recurring political upheaval. Observers say the loss of military backing was decisive, underscoring the delicate balance between civilian authority and security institutions in emerging democracies. Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu has secured the commitment of the Qatar Foundation on Education, Science and Community Development towards reforming the Almajiri education system and addressing the out-of-school children's crisis in Nigeria. She pulled this off in Doha, Qatar, during a closed-door meeting with the chairman of the foundation, Her Highness Sheikh Moza bint Nasir Al Misnad. She says support and funding from the foundation is necessary to assist Nigeria address the challenge of over 15 million out-of-school children and driving a transformative model of Almajiri school system, one that integrates both Islamic and formal education. The First Lady applauded her host, Her Royal Highness Sheikh Hamoza, for her various interventions in the education sector through the foundation that built the Qatari Education City with over 40 schools, including universities and the Qatar National Library, pledging the commitment of the foundation to actively support the Almajiri and out-of-school children's education in Nigeria. The chairman of the foundation says it will assist the Ministry of Education with training of the handlers and teachers in the schools when established to ensure the best outcomes. The First Lady also visited the headquarters of the Qatar Foundation, where the CEO of the foundation, Yusuf Al-Na'ar, informed her that Nigeria has 41 alumni from the Muhammad Khalifa University. She attended the meeting alongside the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, Minister of State for Education, Professor Swaiba Ahmed, and the Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Almajiri and Out-of-School Children's Education, Muhammad Sani. Israel has confirmed the release of last 20 hostages held by Hamas. The announcement came just hours after United States President Donald Trump declared that the war in Gaza was officially ended following weeks of high-stakes diplomacy and renewed peace efforts. Comfort Fashion has the details.
Israeli officials said the 20 remaining hostages held captive for nearly 2 years are now under full military protection after being handed over to the International Red Cross in Gaza. President Trump arrived Tel Aviv on Monday, where he is received by Israeli lawmakers ahead of his address to Parliament. Accompanied by his special envoy Steve Witkoff, his son-in-law Jared Kushner and daughter Ivanka Trump, the U.S. president reaffirmed America's commitment to peace, reconstruction and regional stability. Under the terms of the ceasefire, Israel is expected to release nearly 2,000 Palestinian detainees, including women and minors, as part of a wider prisoner exchange. Meanwhile, in the Palestinian city of Ramallah, jubilant crowds took to the streets to welcome home the first buses of returning detainees, waving flags and chanting in celebration of renewed hope. In Tel Aviv, the mood was emotional as families reunited with their loved ones in scenes of relief and tears. Many expressed gratitude for international mediation while calling for accountability and healing after the prolonged violence. President Trump and Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are expected to join other world leaders in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, for a major peace summit. The talks will focus on humanitarian recovery, rebuilding Gaza's shattered infrastructure, and ensuring that the ceasefire holds. The United States says it remains optimistic that the ceasefire will pave the way for a lasting peace across the Middle East. While challenges remain, world leaders hope the end of the Gaza war will mark the beginning of a new era of cooperation and stability in the region. Comforts, Fashion, NTA News.
And Tuesday's weather forecast is next. And that's a wrap on the news at this time on NTA International. We thank you for watching. I'm Lami Ali. Bamidele John has been the sign language interpreter. Do have a good evening.